Hi there guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I just thought I would have a little sit down chat with you about how to eat cheaply. I've been meaning to do this video for a while because I've had a lot of questions from people about how I afford to eat vegan, how I afford to eat healthy whilst being a student, because especially over the last few months when I've been living away from home, it can be expensive, but you can also do it really cheaply, and I just wanted to share my top tips with you how I managed to stay vegan on a budget. So I think one of my number one tips would be to shop seasonally. And although I don't do this completely, I do it for the most part. So for example, buying things like fresh berries, like raspberries and strawberries and blueberries, in the middle of winter in the UK, it's just not a sustainable way to do things, either environmentally or budget-wise. So like a punnet of raspberries in the UK, even in the summer, is really expensive, never mind in the winter. So how I get around this is to either not buy the berries or to buy frozen berries. You can buy a big 500, I think it's 500 gram bag for about £2, or you can actually buy, there's a 1 kilogram bag of mixed berries in the frozen section, which is I think £2 for a kilogram. It's like a mixed one. It's called like imperfect berries or something. Anyway, it does the job for smoothies. Number one tip would be shop seasonally. You can just Google what's seasonal in your area, different times of the year. There's different fruits and vegetables that come into season and in different months. So yeah, just have a Google and you'd be surprised how much this makes a difference, particularly in countries like Australia as well, where they don't import as much of their food. So the seasonal food is much cheaper because that's what's being able to be grown in that country at that time, so they don't have the import costs. So that would be my number one tip. And of course, if you can't do without those foods, try getting some frozen ones because they tend to be frozen when they are in season and then kept, so they have much better nutritional value as well. And as I said before, it depends very much on the country. I noticed this when I went to Australia, that some foods are much cheaper there and some foods are much more expensive. So for example, mushrooms are very cheap here. You can get a punnet of mushrooms for about 70-80 pence, whereas in Australia, mushrooms are a lot more expensive. However, I found other things to be much cheaper in Australia. For instance, strawberries, mangoes, etc. are much cheaper there. And again, it's just what can be grown in the country. So depending on the country, have a look around. I tend not to go with too much of an idea, although I'll talk more about this later. But if you can go and see what's cheap and then cook recipes or cook meals around that, that's probably the cheapest way of doing it. Next tip would be to look around. Look at different stores, different markets, etc. You don't have to do your whole shop in the one place. And although this saves a lot of time, just going to one supermarket or one shop, it is definitely cheaper if you have a look online and see which supermarkets or which grocers or however you like to shop, which of them have the cheapest options for a particular food you're looking for, because this will depend on the week, the month, etc. So for example, whenever I lived in Australia, I would look between Woolworths and Coles, and then also look a bit between the markets as well. So although it takes a bit more time, if you're wanting to budget, if you have quite a tight budget, and you're wanting to eat really cheap, I would definitely recommend looking between stores, because even 10 pence here and there really adds up and it can make a difference. This tip might not be for everybody, but if you are on a tight budget, I would definitely recommend having a look around different stores. So my next tip is to buy in bulk. This can make quite a difference, especially when it comes to things like rice and potatoes. You can buy a small bag of potatoes, it's about 250 grams, or you can buy like 3 kilograms, especially if you're cooking for a family. You can go through 3 kilograms easily. I do this a lot when it comes to rice because rice doesn't really go off, or well, not for a long time anyway, whereas potatoes you might need to use a bit quicker. So things like rice and beans, I tend to buy in bulk because the bigger the quantity, usually the better the value, but just double check on that because it's not always the case. So also talking about rice and beans, I've also started to buy dried beans because this is actually a lot cheaper than buying canned beans. So you can buy in the supermarkets in the UK, you can buy a 500-gram bag. Okay, that's not a huge quantity. You could get it cheaper if you bought in bulk, or if you bought a bigger quantity. But you can buy a 500-gram bag for about £1, £1.50. So that 500-gram bag, when cooked, is, for me, I would say about 10 servings. So £1 for 10 servings is pretty incredible. Whereas if you were to buy a tin of beans, that could be maybe about 60 or 70 pence, up to £1 if you're buying organic. And that's only 2 servings. So it's much, much cheaper. It's less than half the price. It's much, much less than half the price. And it's really quite easy. If you cook 4 or 5 days worth at once, then you can just keep it in the fridge in a big sealed container. And all you have to do is just take a few spoonfuls out at a time, reheat it. I actually find it much easier than having to drain the cans and then find another container to put the other half of the can in. Never mind the fact that you're not collecting all this tin and metal, so it's actually much better for the environment as well as your pocket. So I would definitely recommend buying dried beans if you can. I know if you're anything like me, I eat quite a lot of beans and it does make a big difference. Same with rice. I know those little pouches are very convenient and great if you just need rice in like a minute or two, but it's so much more expensive. It just doesn't even compare to buying dried rice and then just cooking it yourself, and it only takes like 10-15 minutes. It's not that time consuming really, but the difference in price is just huge. So my last tip for eating on a budget is also to make a list and stick to it, more importantly. We all love going into the supermarket, browsing around, seeing what we like, adding a few chocolate bars in here and there, seeing any new stuff and just whacking it into the trolley. But these are the things that really, really make a difference to your price. And it's nice to do once in a while, but if you're on a budget, my number one tip would be plan out what you want to make and write down all of the foods that you need to make these dishes for the week and stick to it if you can. Obviously, earlier I talked about not having too much of an idea in your head so that you can buy the things that are cheap on that day. That is also true. So for example, say on Tuesday you wanted to make a curry, write down that you need vegetables for a curry, but don't necessarily have in your head that you need to have pak choy or you need to have broccoli, etc. Maybe go with an open mind and think, oh yeah, mushrooms are cheap today, so they might be nice in the curry. Carrots are always cheap, so stick them in, that sort of thing. Whenever I'm trying to eat on a really tight budget, I do like to write down the things I like to make for the week. I also go with a bit of an open mind and think, yes, I could swap this vegetable for that vegetable because it's cheap today, that sort of thing. But I do like to stick mainly to a list because I feel like that way, 1, I don't run out of food, 2, I don't waste food by getting too much, and 3, I really reduce buying extra unnecessary things that I don't need. So that would be my top tips for eating on a budget. I know some of them are a little bit obvious, but some of them aren't necessarily, and some people don't realise that things like eating in season can be much cheaper. So I really hope this has been helpful, and if you have any other tips about eating cheaply or eating to a budget, I would love to hear down below. And if you'd like to see more of these kind of how-to or eating cheaply videos, let me know because I could definitely do that. And please like and subscribe down below, and thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.